Hi, welcome to Happy Hour with Ruth
and Roxy. Cheers.
Cheers. So that's the first one I've had in 2 weeks
Because she's a little, what's the word? Not sadistic, masochistic.
insane. So I went on an elimination diet and now it's over. And I learned a lot about myself, that potato chips are my default. So I tried really hard not to do that, although I could have potato chips on there because it was about, there was no dairy, no sugar, no wheat, no alcohol. I feel like I'm missing something.
No,
okay.
There's 4 things you
Which
told
is
me
a
about.
lot.
If you gave out something else, I don't know about it.
No.
And I don't want to know. That was hard enough.
But so the report back is life is more fun with wine. And
no news there.
And I'm glad I did it because it did kind of reset my diet. I don't know if it helped me health-wise. I'm going to go get my cholesterol checked and a bunch of things checked. But I did realize that my go-to when I'm stressed or it's just busy is carbs. And as much as I love carbs, you don't have to go to them all the time. Fruit is good.
Fruit is good.
Celery is good. Little baby tomatoes are good.
They are not
cucumber is good. They are not potato chips. They
are their own thing.
But there is that whole 80-20 thing.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and also you get to a certain age and your weight keeps creeping up. So you have to make some adjustments. Although I was laughing today, I think I've lost about 500 pounds in the last year and it's all the same 3 pounds. Right?
Yeah.
And but it is, I think it's good. And one of the things we've been talking about a lot is sort of the next 6 months are going to go by anyway. You might as well do something, right? Or the next week is going to, or the next hour, right? And with the elimination diet, I kept putting it off because it was like, oh, it's summer. Oh, well, it's going to be this. Oh, it's going to be this. And finally, I was like, I had this window in between a whole bunch of things and Thanksgiving, and I was not being on an elimination diet for Thanksgiving. But I think that's the lesson I learned was jump in and stink and do it. And even if you don't do it perfectly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But also, Roxanne will tell you what we're drinking today because it's a very important drink today.
It is. So this is a wine by a company called Crown and Thieves. Jason Parks is the main winemaker. And this one is called Gobsmacked.
Is that Crown and Thieves or is that from the other more rustic one?
Wait a second.
He has, he's got several. In the
Okanagan. I see what you mean. Yeah.
Is that from the what was the other one called? I can't remember.
The Hatch.
The Hatch.
The
yeah.
Hatch.
It might be from the Hatch.
I think this is from the Hatch. Yeah. It's the same umbrella, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, isn't that great art on the front? That's somebody's kid did that. I love it. Yeah, this one's called P.S. I Love You because it is a mixture of Pinot Noir for the P and Syrah for the S. Gobsmacked.
And it's really good.
And actually, it's a big deal because you haven't had any wine for 2 weeks.
I've had no wine for 2 weeks. But
I had less wine for 2 weeks, but I did not have no
wine. She didn't have me.
Nope. I was very supportive.
She was very shockingly supportive. I would have left her in the dust, man, and drank wine. But she was very supportive.
Drink wine in front of you. And also it's good for anyone to take a reset from time to time. And just, you know, if you have that niggling thought in the back of your head, at what point do I think I have a problem?
Right.
2 weeks without wine will tell you.
That's true. And the fact that you can do it. And that's, I have to say, that's a rule I have is I am happy to drink wine when I want it. Any day when I get off work and I think I need a drink is when I don't let myself have a drink.
Yeah.
And I'm a little, because I know I don't have that. I'm old enough to know that I don't have alcoholism in my bones.
Yeah.
However, I don't want to be dependent on it. So as soon as my fallback is, oh my God, I need a drink. It's like, no. So I'm very careful with my words.
I think that's really smart. I think just to be aware of what your motivation is. And that was part of it for me. I'm like, well, if I'm not drinking wine with Ruth and my husband he was gone for some of the time she was off this. And I'm like, well, then I'm just drinking alone. And what does that mean?
You have a dog, you're not alone.
I'm never alone. It's true. It's true. But I'm like, well, no, because, you know, why? Just why? It's a social thing for me.
Also because she's a supportive friend. So she was very good.
There you go.
Seriously?
Yeah. You owe me big time.
I would have drank, just saying. I would have drank in front of her too. I would have been subtle about it, but I would have done it, man. So we've been talking about the just do it thing a little bit, partly because of the last 2 weeks, but also, for those of you who are here, we're going to position this as our first podcast, even though there's going to be an archive of really crappy podcasts. Or what are we calling them? The rehearsal. It's like when we had training wheels. Yes. Our practice. Yeah. But our practice archive is going to be up, so we're not going to. We're being transparent about it. But you know what? This is going to be a shitty podcast.
Yeah.
And not the content, but the production values and what we're learning and all of the things with the video editing and the website. And we're getting better every time. But you know what? Your first podcast is always going to be crap. The first song you write is going to be crap. The 10th song you write might be crap. But you know what? Every time you get a little bit better. And what were you telling me about? I think it's the Victorian age, where women weren't expected to be good, right?
That's what it was. It was the I don't know. Yeah, I think it probably was Victorian age, where ladies, there's a quote in some Jane Austen book, Sense and Sensibility or Pride and Prejudice. All of the young women, they cover screens, they sing, they dance, they write poetry, and I know not all. It's like, yeah, but they don't do any of it well.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
That's
what they did. They learned to do these things, and then you get together at an event and someone plays piano horribly and you all clap very politely because it's what you do. And some of them become really good at it. It's not the competition or the striving to be the best.
Right. So the outcome isn't, that's just it. It's not the outcome, right? It's what you're doing with it. So we have a really, really good friend, and she came one weekend and we sang karaoke, and you dance with karaoke. I'm not talking about you, just saying.
I figured, because I'm here all the time.
Well, and she's good at karaoke. But to her absolute credit, when she took the mic, she said, "I can't sing and I can't dance," and she can't. And she didn't care.
Oh no!
Because she was happy.
She was so fun to watch.
Right.
And she actually can dance, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that's the thing. Like, it's the joy of. I think it's the joy of the event that feeds the person doing it, but also feeds the people that are watching.
Well, yeah, and again, it's not about the outcome. We're not trying to be, poets are going to sell a book of poetry, or we're not trying to be. Well, we would actually like to make a living from this podcast one day, awesome. but it will be because
or at least
of
attention.
Yeah. But it will be because of what it is. It won't be because we become great video editors or anything. It will be because you have a place here.
And we're not selling you anything.
No.
We're not selling anybody anything.
No, and that's just it. But we want to do this anyway. Like, honestly, even with the practice ones, that was things we had to do so that we could get used to this. And it was fun, right? And people who are much better in this world will look and go, "Oh, well, you could have done this and you could have done this." And we'll take feedback. I would love feedback. But the other side is we also don't care, because it was fun and we're building something that we truly think is important, right? That it's a place for people to come, people like us that want to come and have a conversation every second Friday. And we have to do it every second Friday because we can't actually keep up with the editing of the videos and the blog posts. But
yes,
but a place where you can come and hang out for a bit with like-minded people. And honestly, even if we're not like-minded on some things, you get a different perspective that comes from kindness and compassion and inclusivity. And my big thing about the world these days is I can have a respectful discussion with anybody as long as they have consideration and compassion, right? And unfortunately, sometimes it feels like two sides are very far apart, and I don't know that many of us are. I think there's a real extreme that's far apart.
Yeah.
And I think so we've been talking about what this podcast means, and everybody is absolutely welcome here, unless you want to take away somebody else's rights, unless you don't see everyone as equal and deserving of a good life. Like, those are the people that are definitely not our people. But you know what? If somebody wants to come on and say, you know what, I think the world would be better if, I don't know, we paved every parking lot. I think that's stupid. But I could have a conversation about that, about
Tell us why.
Right?
Tell us why. Tell us your perspective.
Yeah.
The whole the idea of inclusivity and trying things even though you're not good at it or you're not good at it yet. Like that means a lot to me as a writer. And when I said we're not selling you anything, I actually lied, because I want you to buy my books. Buy all my books.
Yes.
Buy all my books.
Roxanne Snowpeck, Amazon. That's all you have to do.
I'll be here all the rest of my life.
Or Goodreads, right? Or where else?
Yeah. Amazon.
Amazon. Go to Amazon. It's easier.
Amazon. But like one of my favorite books when I was getting started is Anne Lamott's Bird by Bird. And Bird by Bird is the author, and she's a social activist and a novelist, Anne Lamott. Bird by Bird is sort of her classic book on writing, and it's the title comes from when her brother was a kid. He was doing this assignment for some class on birds and identifying birds and making lists of them, and he got overwhelmed, and he was just all like, oh, I can't do this, and their dad told him, don't worry about it, buddy, just take it bird by bird. That's it, just bird by bird. And for her,
that's good life advice.
That comes to writing, because writing is about writing that shitty first draft and finishing it anyway. I do some editing as well. And whenever someone comes to me and says, I have a book, I want to write it, can you give me any advice? First, I tell them the local conferences that are available to them if they choose to do that. If they don't choose to invest in their career, well, that's a sign. If they do, great, you're on your way. But the other thing I say to them is finish the damn book, because you can't sell an idea. You can't perfect an idea. You can't do anything. Nora Roberts says you have to vomit that first page. You vomit out that manuscript, because you can't fix a blank page. You can't.
Yeah.
You got to get it out there, and it's going to be ugly. Absolutely. It's going to be ugly. It's probably going to stink. You know what? Then you got something to work with. But if you don't try. I started piano lessons when I was in my 40s. I had taken piano lessons for years throughout my life. I think I started when I was 5. I am the queen of failed piano lessons. But, I started again later because I just wanted to keep going. And I will probably start up again, because I never did do that grade 8 exam. Did my grade 7 exam. And I don't play well, but you know what? It's something I wanted to do. And I'm still willing to get out there and play it badly. I did a, what do you call it when kids play in front of each other?
I don't know. In horseback riding, it's called a gymkhana.
No, it's the thing you do at the end of it's like the performance thing that you do. I can't remember. When all the kids play their pieces. So I was taking lessons at the same time my kids were, and their friends. And I was actually taking lessons from my friend who was teaching them.
Oh, that's funny.
And so recital, that's the word.
Recital.
So we got up at the end in her basement, in her studio. And, this 7-year-old, this 8-year-old, this 10-year-old, and then this 45-year-old gets up and plays. And I was like sweating and just all of it. And I'm like, ugh. And I played and I got through it. And then I got up and I bowed and they all clapped. And I felt like this happy little 12-year-old inside me got some kind of feedback
Acknowledgement
that I always wanted. And half those kids played better than me. The other half played way better than me. And yet I did it, and I'm glad, and I'll keep doing it.
But isn't that sort of a really great vision for life? Is like, do it and do it badly, and if you want to, try it again, right? And it doesn't matter. Like it's like, for me, it's like cooking. There are things, I make things, and poor Roxanne is like, sometimes it's like, taste this, I think it sucks, right?
I am always willing to be your guinea pig.
But you know what? You know how you get better at cooking is you keep cooking, right? Yeah. How you get better at running marathons is you keep running, right? How you get better at everything. There's a reason, thank you. There's a reason that people of our wisdom age, just saying, why
we're like fine cheese, I'm just gonna say.
And wine. But there's a reason why we're a hot commodity for work now. Is because you bring a wisdom and you bring the experience and you've done the things before. And it's like you and Brett. So I tried sourdough, and honest God, sourdough hates me.
Oh, your sourdough is fine.
But
you
I also
need to keep making 1,000 more shitty loaves. That's all.
But it's way too much work when I live next to you.
That's true.
Right. But so Roxanne's sourdough, but she keeps perfecting it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing is, when it's something you like to do, you keep doing it. So Paul, my husband, was on a plane one time. or maybe it was me. I'm not sure whose story this is now.
If your memories are getting mixed up,
Yeah,
this
that's
is like
a problem.
whole...
I think it might have actually. I do think it was me. So I'm on a plane, and Paul does Tai Chi. I heard Tai Chi in my head, and I thought it must be Paul, but he does Tai Chi. And I was on a plane one time, and beside me was this fellow, this little Asian fellow, and he had a laptop out for the whole. And it was from Vancouver to Toronto, so we're talking a 4.5 hour flight.
Yeah.
And he kept replaying the same like 2 minutes of a Tai Chi video over and over.
What?
And I had known from Paul that they had just had some big Tai Chi thing here. And so at one point, I had to go to the bathroom, and I got up and I was like, I didn't mean to look, but I see it's Tai Chi. My husband does Tai Chi. And he's like, oh yes. And he said, I've done Tai Chi all my life. And he's telling me, and I'm like, so are you editing this? Like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm practicing. And then he introduced himself to me, and I told Paul the name afterwards, and he's like a global Tai Chi master, right? And so, but the thing is, here's this master, right, who is somebody everyone else looks to, and he was playing the same 2 stinking minutes because there was a move he wanted to get better, right? So even if you're really good at it, like I have a goddaughter who's a horse person, right? And when she goes out, she goes out and just rides for fun. But she'll also go out because she wants to improve something, right? And she's ridden for 25 years, right? And I think that's the magic of it. And I think the things you like, you stick to, but the outcome doesn't have to be that you're going to become an artist that sells their paintings, right? Yeah. If you like to stink and paint,
paint for the process, and then keep painting. Oh, I keep all my canvases, but then I also paint over some too, because it's like, I like to paint, and I don't paint so that you can hang them on the wall.
No, because it's the process, but also some of the great artists have painted over theirs, right? Yeah. Like, because actually that's kind of financially responsible.
It is, yeah. It actually is. Okay, so I read somewhere, and that prefaces a lot of my stories. I don't know if this is real or a novel. I don't know anything about that. But the thing that I remember, I might have dreamt it, is that it was a character or a person that was in prison. And it was a wrongful, I don't know why I know this, but some sort of imprisoned in a other country or something. Anyway, and he kept himself sane by playing a golf course that he knew very well. He was a golfer, and he kept himself sane during the time he was there by playing 18 holes over
in his head,
and over again, in his head, in his cell, with nothing. And then finally, when he got out and he was released, he went to that course and he played it perfectly.
Yeah.
You've heard that too?
No, well, I've heard, not that story, but I've definitely heard like Olympic athletes. Right.
Yeah.
In their head, they visualize win, and there is something to that, right? And I actually just read an article, and it was about the damage The Secret did to the world because
I want to know about that, because I want
you want to know.
I want to be a follower of The Secret, and I want to get all the things from the universe. But anyway, tell me the downside.
But so the downside is what they were saying was it created this demographic of people that are sitting on their couch visualizing, but they're visualizing material things.
Oh, okay.
Right? They're not visualizing, I'm going to run a 10K, or I'm going to open a counseling thing that helps people. It was about the material thing. So they're sitting there visualizing, which honestly, I read The Secret, and I think there are elements. I have a big belief in what you think is what you see in the universe, right? That manifest. And I think that comes from you recognize things, and also the energy that you put out attracts them to you. Right. But so what they were saying in this article was, so we got all these people who just want to be rich and all of this, and they're sitting on the couch imagining a Mercedes, instead of thinking, hey, I could create a software app that maybe helps people going through cancer to get rides to chemo. Right. And then the side benefit is that they get financial reward out of it, right? But they said, what The Secret did was make all these people think if you dream it, it happens. Right. But it was about the material stuff, right? Yeah. And so I think because Olympic athletes visualize, I often use visualization when I'm thinking about, about honestly losing weight, or if I've got something big coming up with work, or if there's something I want to achieve. Like we're going to Paris and then Kenya, and I've been visualizing be out on the morning game drives and seeing all the animals and putting that energy out there so the animals come visit, right? But it's also preparing me for in there so that I'm ready to fully take advantage of the moment, right? So I won't be distracted and thinking, oh, I could have had another coffee, or oh my God, it's early, or whatever.
Right.
What I'm thinking about is the magic when you see a lion walk across in front of you, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I think visualization is a huge thing. I can remember before I met Paul, because Paul and I met a little bit, like we were a little bit older. We weren't young loves like you guys.
Children.
But I remember writing a list because I had dated so many people that really there was no future with them, right? We didn't have the same goals or visions or anything like that. And it's not that they were bad people, but there was something there that our values didn't align about what we wanted. And I made a list. And Paul, funnily enough, like years later, we were talking about it, and he had made a list.
Really?
And we pretty much matched up about, and it wasn't like,
oh my gosh, I should write a book about you guys.
You should
I
not.
love that.
But it also wasn't like I want somebody who drives a Mercedes, because honest to God, my entire upbringing, was, you want to drive a Mercedes? Figure it out, man.
Okay, he drives a BMW.
I paid for half that car, man. but you know what I mean? Like mine was never about the material things, because I also grew up in, I was fortunate to grow up in a family where it was like, if you want something, you have the absolute ability to earn it, right? I never had that, hey, I'm going to be the stay at home wife. And honestly, I think, but I also think that you were a family manager. Like there's a difference between somebody who's got 2 nannies and a housekeeper and all of this, than somebody who's a stay-at-home mom, because that's a freaking family manager. Like that's a job I couldn't possibly do. Right? There is so much to that job.
You totally could, but
I really couldn't. I promise you I couldn't. As soon as one kid yelled and they wanted my potato chips or my chocolate, we'd be done.
You do what you got to do, man. But yeah. Oh, that's so interesting.
But it does but it also goes back to also, it's, I have some friends that later in life are single, but the other side is like, you know what, go out there and date, do it safely, and do it responsibly, right? Like that's just it. Like that's exactly, like if you still want to, but you have to go out, and honest to God, you got to kiss in everything. You got to kiss some frogs.
Yeah.
Right. And I know it's harder these days because people misrepresent on social media and that kind of thing. But if you're not out there, so I think I told you this. I read a book, and it was about luck. And they took people, and they did these.
What was the title of the book?
I can't remember. See, she knows things.
Who was
and
the
I don't
author?
know things. I'm going to make a little note to find it out.
Oh,
see,
always
she knows.
know the author.
Yeah, I never know. I can't remember all these things.
My husband says, "Oh, who cares about the author?" And I'm like,
we care about the authors. But what they did was they did all of these experiments, and they took 2 people, and they put them the same dates, like the same days of the week, in a bar, and one person was out going and talked to everybody around them, right? And they did this in several different places, and one person just kept to themselves and read their book and did stuff, which honestly would be me. And within a year, the person that talked to everybody had a huge amount of opportunities put in front of them because they engaged with people, right? And it wasn't that the other person wasn't working as hard, but they didn't make the connections. And so everybody saw the person that engaged more as lucky, because, oh, you ran into that person.
I see. Okay.
Right? And they were you make your own luck. In many, like there are times where you win the lottery, right? I mean, I've had many instances in my life where I was incredibly lucky to be in the right place at the right time with the right skill set, or they had too much wine and thought I was good at something. But you know what I mean? Like there is exactly, but there is luck. But other times it's like, and it's made me as an introvert reach out more, like especially when you're in places where you're out of your comfort zone. It's okay to say to the person, hey, having a good day?
Okay, so let me tell you about an introvert comfort zone that is so hilarious to be part of, is a writer's conference.
I can't even imagine that.
So I have for years gone to a writers conference that has become one of the biggest North American and actually international conferences in the world, just about an hour or so away from us. And it started off small. I think there was 30 people. Now they cap it, I think, at 800 every year.
Oh my gosh. Were you there when there were 30?
No, but I was there about 5 years after it started.
Wow.
And then I went every year for about 20 years. And I haven't been for a little while. COVID kind of got me off my game, but it's a really, really fun conference. But the really interesting thing about it for me is how I felt when I first went was terrified, beyond terrified. I didn't have a book. I had an idea for a book. I had a book that I'd started. But I was looking at all these other people around. I'm like, these are all writers. And they're all looking around going, these are all writers.
That's exactly.
So what do we do? So you got 800 introverts in a hotel. Everyone's upstairs getting room service. And nobody's out there networking, which is what everyone says is you got to go out and network. Like, okay, for an introvert, that is like go out and self-flagellate in public naked.
But that's exactly it, right?
It is. You're like, I don't know what that word means.
Yep.
But so like after, and I went with my sister quite a few times actually, and I started getting to know people. I don't know how it happened, but gradually. And then when I would go there, I'd be like, oh, I know that person. I'm going to sit with that person. But I remember one year I went early and I walked into the bar, the restaurant, and I was in between classes or something. And I saw a woman sitting alone. And so I walked up to her and I said, hey, I'm here for the Surrey Writers Conference. Is that what you're here for? And she said, yeah, would you like to join me? And I said, oh, I would love that. I'm so glad you asked. And we sat down and we had a great conversation. I have no idea who she was. Don't remember anything. We haven't kept in touch, but we had a lovely conversation about the conference and it broke the ice for both of us. And it was, it stops you from sitting at a bar alone.
Yep. But here's my question, because I'm not sure I'd call you an extroverted introvert, but you have your moments, right? Like me, right? Where you are. So what gave you at that moment to walk up and say it instead of going to sit at the bar alone?
Yeah.
What was it that propelled you?
I'm not sure, but I will say that when I was young, I was shy. I was quiet, shy, and I was afraid. I was a fearful child. Lots of anxiety, all the things. Didn't want to be noticed. Nobody look at me. Also, I've been this height since I was 12. So
they can't see you what height you are.
So I'm 5'7". That's true. Like this. And that's not overly tall, but at a very crucial time in my life, I was taller than everyone else in my class. So I learned early that I didn't want to stick out. But as I got older and came into my own, which is what happens when you get wrinkles and you accept them, is you discover that actually
also wine.
Awesome.
Also wine
helps. I'm not shy. I am introverted. I need time to recover and recharge after social situations, but I'm not shy. I'm not afraid of people. I actually.
Oh, I'm freaking terrified of them.
No, you're not.
I really am.
Totally fine. But there's a difference. But there's a difference, right? There's a difference between, and I actually enjoy social things, and I will do them sometimes without a cattle prod or a gun to my head. So
the other day, I think I don't know. Oh, we were doing something else, and usually we spend a lot of time together, and there was something going on, and then it was like I saw Roxanne walking down our back trail because she lives right next door, and it was like, what are you doing? And she's like, well, Ray's not home, and I'm feeling social, so I'm going down where this gathering of neighbors was, and it was like. In my head, it was like, you're so brave, because I don't think I would do that.
It was that is a
you were very brave
for me. That is a stretch for me. But when we moved to this community, and so we moved, both of us moved here. We moved in about 10 months before you guys. I think it'll be 4 years for us next month. But we moved in just before the pandemic, and you guys moved during the pandemic. So we moved to this gated community, a small community of people who are mostly semi-retired. It's not an age restricted community, but it is mostly older people.
Yeah, it's probably 80%.
It's 90% actually.
90%.
Yeah, 10% children, 10% families with children.
Yeah, but then I think there's probably another 20 in there that people that are seasoned, but still working.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Like us.
Like us. So when we moved here, I said very deliberately to myself, I want a community. I am seeking community. I want us to retire well. My husband actually hadn't retired when we moved here, but he did shortly after we moved here. So
yeah, now he's around all the time.
He's around all the time. Although he golfs a lot, which is good, and he really likes it. So it's all good.
Yeah.
But I was saying, to myself, I was saying, if you want to be here and you want to function here, you have to push yourself.
Yep.
You cannot just hide in the backyard with Ruth all the time. That's not going to work, although that works pretty well.
It does. But also we invite lots of people over. Yeah. We like to be in our space.
They do.
We do, right? But me and you like to be like we do. Which is something we're moving out of, I have to say.
But this is also part of what we're doing here.
Yes.
Is we're inviting you into that because we've found a community that's really supportive. We love our greater little 129 home community here. Yeah. And we love what we found with each other. I mean, we survived COVID. We're like, okay.
Oh yeah, we're pandemic friends.
But we discovered during that time that we really have a lot in common. We really get along. We love each other.
We do love each other.
When I really want to scare her, I walk up behind her and I go to hug her.
Oh my God. Okay, so this is really so part of this conversation is validating those of us who maybe from the outside people are like, oh, look at, you're the this weirdos. And you're this. We are. Well, I mean, I call us misfit toys, but also like if you said to somebody about me that I'm an introvert, most people would be like, what?
Right? You're very functional.
I'm an extroverted introvert. I'm really good if I'm put into a thing, but then I have to go home and sleep for 4 days, right? But the other side of that is when we found each other, and you don't always think at this age that you're going to find somebody that you connect with, and we have very not similar backgrounds.
On paper, we should not be friends.
Oh my God. But yet we're like-minded, and we bring our diverse backgrounds bring something where it's like, I talk about a little bit too much about US politics, but also about Jimmy Buffett, which I don't think you really knew much about before.
Hey, I bought a magazine about him today.
Oh, what did you get the People magazine?
Time. Yep.
See?
I got to learn.
But then Roxanne tells me about living in an evangelical background where it's really interesting, and living farm life. Mm-hmm. And Mennonite recipes, man.
Mennonite recipes, having babies.
Right. Well, yeah, like
weird things out of your husband's skin,
Okay. That's a whole different freaking thing, man. Like they like to push each other's pimples and stuff.
Yeah,
so she's a mom of 3 and a grandmom of 2 and about to
almost
be of
3.
3.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't have kids and have dogs. And yet we have more in common than not in common when it comes to our values and our approach to life and our curiosity and all these things, except like, for example, Thanksgiving. So we're having our little Thanksgiving here, and then Roxanne and Ray are going in on Sunday to have Thanksgiving with all their kids. But I would see Thanksgiving completely differently, where it's like, hey, we're going to make a turkey and have leftovers. And she has to be like, where are all my kids? What are the grandkids? Who's sick? What's going on? Right?
That's right.
Like, yeah. But it shows you that diverse backgrounds make life more interesting, right? But I also really think that if we're able to do this, because honest to God, we're kind of misfit toy geeks. If we can do this and get out and talk to people and come out and talk to you and do all these things, there's so much more opportunity for all of us kind of misfit toys. It's like I listen to The Big Bang Theory when I'm trying to sleep, and there's one of it in there where one of the lead characters, Leonard, he's doing a commencement or a graduate speech, right, to the people that are graduating from his high school, and he's like, this is for the weird kids, right? All the things you're doing that made you get mocked and all these things. It's like what you're doing is making yourself interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's really good because as you move through life, and I think we all have to recognize that we're each interesting in our own way.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, as long as you go through life being kind and compassionate and inclusive, then everything else is just details about personality. And I think that's a really important life lesson. And honest to God, if we can get out and be social, anybody can do it, because we are the misfit toys.
Yep.
Okay, but we should talk about the fact that you had a big milestone this week.
Oh, I submitted the second book in my latest series. My first, I've been writing for years, and I have, I don't know, 20 some books out.
USA bestselling author, just saying.
Women's fiction, romance, beach reads.
What's your website?
Fun. RoxanneSnowpeck.ca.
See? Or Amazon, Roxanne Snowpeck.
Yeah, that's true.
Or eventually, once I finish our website, maybe this weekend, there'll be an email there, and you can always ask us where to find her books.
That's true. Yes.
But yes.
So I wrote my last book before the pandemic came out in 2019, early in 2019, and I had been writing pretty hard and fast. I had a lot of deadlines for a lot of years. I was writing an average of, I think, 2 or 3 books a year for quite a few years. And I burned out pretty badly. And then, so I finished the third in whatever that series was in 2019. Then we did this massive renovation of our house, or maybe that happened at the same time. It's all a blur. I know I was writing while there was jackhammering going on in my house. It was awful. Anyway, finished that. Then we moved. Then the pandemic happened. And throughout it all, I'm like, I don't have to do anything I don't want to do at all. And so then, of course, naturally, I decided to start taking classes because, that's how my brain works.
Because that's what she does.
And then I got into editing. But I do love writing as much as I complain about it, and I complain about it a lot. I don't think
she complains. I think she talks through her challenges.
It is part of the process. Anyway, so I had this series that I wanted to do. So the first one came out in August. Yeah, the end of August.
It's really good. You should read it. What's it called again? Because I don't remember anything.
Cowboy's Lost Family.
Except the freaking main character drinks Chardonnay. It's a problem for me, man.
It's a series about identity. It's a 4-book series about identity, finding family, discovering where you fit into the world. And it follows 3 people who are adopted, and then actually all of the people are adopted in the book. But anyway, so I just finished the second book in the series, submitted that, and that's a painful process.
Woo-hoo!
So my editor will probably read it and then come back and say, Roxanne, what exactly were you smoking when you finished this? That's not true, because none of this makes any sense. And then I'll have to,
that's just not true.
The whole self-flagellation,
her self-deprecation. Cycle. It's not true. Her books are really good, and they keep your attention. And Roxanne Snowpeck, you should go to Amazon. And this really isn't like, I wouldn't tell you to read not a good book. Like if it wasn't a good book, I wouldn't tell you to read it, because that's not what we do here.
Yeah,
it's a good book. And I mean, honestly, we walk at lunchtime, and I didn't know a whole bunch of the book, but I heard some stuff, and I'm still like going through it, and it's like, what's going to happen next? And maybe it's bad memory on my part, or maybe or maybe you didn't tell me.
The best gift at this age.
But the plot lines, and there is a magic, because I do PR and communications, and Roxanne does a fair amount of work with us, which we're very grateful for. But so when you do like a news release, or you're writing an article, you don't have the same layers of freaking, like she'd talk when we were walking, and now I'm seeing the book, and it's like the layers of plot lines and the threads that run through. And it's just like, in my head, it's just like, what's going to happen next? And what about this? And what about this? And then there's a part of me that's removed, and it's like, how the hell did she do this? Right? But
remember that walk when we were like, why did I start this? This is a terrible idea. That's how it happens.
Yeah, except there's a magic that comes out the other end. But also, let's go back to the fact that, how many books have you written?
I think 27.
Right? Like, so the other side of that is, so think about that compared to your first book. I bet you would see this book very differently.
Yeah, my first book's pretty bad.
Right. But you know what, but good enough to be published.
Yep.
Like the other
Yeah.
side of that is like, and the other
Somebody
thing, you
thought
know,
so.
so I have this thing in my head where it's like people are like, don't buy lottery tickets. But somebody wins, right? But the other side of it is like, you know what? I can remember going for a job at McLean's here in Canada, and I was just out of university, and it was like, why would they ever hire me? And you know what my mom said to me? They're gonna hire somebody. Why the hell wouldn't it be you?
Beautiful.
Right. So the other side of that is that's what, and it kind of goes back to all the things we've been talking about, is like, do it anyway. And if at the very least you get pure enjoyment out of it, that's a stinking gift.
Yeah.
And if at the other side of it you find some other thing that comes from it, right? And like for this, like honestly, we're doing this for our fun, and we hope you have fun too. So it turns into something. But at the very end of this, if nobody listens to this, we've still had freaking fun.
We've lost nothing.
No, because we do this anyway. So we're just, the only difference is we're not talking to each other. We're talking this way. That's the only, like, it's, so why not try? Right?
Exactly. Play the piano badly. Write the shitty first draft.
Yep. Do a shitty podcast.
Go to the job interview.
Yep.
Do the thing that scares you, and do it anyway, because even if you fail, you've tried something. And
run a 5K and be last.
And be last. Oh my goodness. Because the other thing is, there are people out there who are watching and they're saying, I could never do that. And so when I did that piano recital, children in that audience were like, there's a grown-up who's doing it, and look at, she made mistakes.
Yeah.
And then they went up and they did their own thing. Everybody benefits.
And I think that's exactly it. Is like, when you try, even if you're terrible, right? Like the thing is, it gives somebody else, it gives them the gift of maybe they could try it too, right? And like, and honestly, so back when I used to travel a lot for work, and it's one of the things I started doing after reading that book, and it's like, I've talked to people, and it would be like, you know, it'd be like, hey, having a good day.
Is that?
The book about luck, and talking to people at the bar, and doing this. Because honestly, I used to be like, I'm sitting with my book, don't even look. And I gave off a vibe, let me tell you. But then it was like,
vibe, it's scary.
but then it was like, hey, are you having a good day? And sometimes you'd get people, it's like, yeah, it's good. And they'd watch sports or whatever. Or you'd say to somebody, and then they'd start telling you because they were on a magnificent journey, or maybe they were going because their parent was dying, or maybe whatever. But for a moment, you got into their life, right? And maybe you gave them comfort, or maybe it was just that you whiled away the time a little bit. And for some, maybe they just needed somebody to talk to at that minute, right? To take their mind off whatever it was. Because honestly, in airports, it's either business, tragedy, or fun. Right?
Oh, wow. I never looked at it that way.
And so everybody's got something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's so interesting. But you're right about that. Huh.
Right? And so, and I promise you, except for her, I don't like anybody. So the fact is, if I can reach out and talk to
that
people.
That is a rough place to be, let me tell you.
But if I can reach out and do it, then all it takes is like, just try it once and see how it feels. Because honestly, most people will talk to you about stuff, and then they'll say, what about you? And sometimes you get a chance with people that don't know any of your baggage or your issues, and you could say, well, I'm going here and I hope this, or I'm thinking about this. Like sometimes with strangers, sometimes you get to,
ooh, you can be more open with strangers than you can
and
with other people sometimes.
And you can be your most aspirational self, right? Like,
they don't know.
Well, and
you could say, I'm on tour for my book or my rock band or whatever, and how do they know?
Okay, just for the record, so when I was younger and single, I was in a bar with a friend.
She probably did that.
And no, but we did tell these two really cute guys that we were helicopter pilots. No. And then one of them was like, yeah, and he opened his license, and it was like, shit.
Oh no, busted. Oh no.
So you got to be careful, man. And if you're going to fake an accent, it better be a good accent. I've never done that, but I've had it done. I've been in a bar and somebody's like giving me a Scottish or an Irish accent, and I have those people in my family, and it's like, you're full of crap.
Oh, I'm gonna try that one
To
day.
get an accent?
I can do an accent.
Let me hear.
Oi. We were in New Zealand earlier this year, and I had the accent down pat. And the friends we were traveling with, when we at our first B&B, they're like, "Oh, she can do an accent. Listen to her." And I did it, and the woman is like, "No, no." I'm like, "You guys, you gave me the yips. I can do it."
Okay, do the Kiwi accent.
Oi, the Kiwi accent. What are we doing later? We're having pizza. We're having beer. We're going to the bar. We're going to
It's going to be my shout.
Chat. We're going to chat for a while. You marsh out. Yes.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Marsh
I got to
out.
say, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I have a lot of Kiwi friends. That's not bad. Although, sounds kind of Australian too.
Yeah, pretty close by. Don't want to tell them that though.
Okay, so we're going to Paris at the end of November, and then a few days into December, and Paris is full of freaking bed bugs.
I'm so sorry for you going to Paris. You'll suffer greatly.
So, but this goes back to the whole do it anyway. You know what? Travel's always messy.
Travel is messy. Yeah.
Like, so when Roxanne and Ray went to New Zealand, first of all, the pandemic got in the way.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So we had been planning this trip. We were supposed to go in 2020, March of 2020. The pandemic hit on whatever day it was. We were supposed to leave March the 6th. It was March the 1st when we canceled our trip, because we were supposed to go that year. 2021, nope, that's not going to work. 2022, no, still shut down. 2023, yeah, we went.
Well, because New Zealand was really careful.
New Zealand was really careful. And had we gone that year, we would have been stuck in a hotel. They would have been like, "Welcome here." Lock. Stay home. Click. Yep. The hotel doors would have locked, and that would have been it for 2 weeks for us. So 2023, awesome. We went with the friends that we had originally planned to go with. And 3 days before we left, they get hit with a friggin' tropical monsoon of some kind that
everything was flooded
the East Coast. That was a big part of the trip that we were supposed to go on. So, it was, we considered canceling again, because we're like, we don't want to be there if we as tourists are just going to cause trouble.
Right, if you're going to get in the way.
Yeah, if we're going to get in the way, or if we're going to take up space that first responders need, whatever, we don't want to be there. But everyone said, no, come anyway. And we canceled the part of our trip that was where the worst hit part was, which was the wineries we really wanted to go to. So that was sad.
There are cruises to New Zealand that go there, just for instance.
We'll talk about that more later.
We will talk about that.
Yes, we will. Okay. But anyway, I'm glad we went. I mean, we saw a different kind of New Zealand, because it was in New Zealand that was dealing with stuff, and roads were closed. Wow, were roads closed? And wow, did we ever get lost? And wow, we saw part of the country that we probably wouldn't have seen otherwise.
But that's just it. And you adapt. And I think it kind of goes back to that, just do it anyway. And it's like I'm going to research about bed bugs and what you do. And I know some of the stuff because we travel a bit.
I will be quarantining you for 2 weeks after you get back.
But the other side is, so after Paris, and we're staying in Airbnb, which I have to admit I have some conscience problems about now, because I've read more about Airbnbs. But we'll put a pin in this and go back to it. Okay. But then we're going to Africa, right? So our bags are going to be in the belly of a plane a couple of times before we come back, but also we're going to put them in bathtubs in Paris. We're going to be careful. I'm going to learn all the things that you can do, and it's an Airbnb, so that's less than. They still get people in and out, but they don't have people coming in and out of a hotel has thousands of people coming in and out in a day. Whereas and all you need is one room and it goes everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Whereas an Airbnb is a bit different, but still, honestly, still a challenge. But so I was reading about Airbnbs, and one of the things I like about it is because you can go to the patisserie and get things, right, and do the things and do all of that, and you get to know the neighborhood, and honestly, everywhere you get to know a bit of a neighborhood, because they're not always in where the hotels might be. Well, what I'm reading more and more about Airbnbs is they're taking up homes and making neighborhoods unlivable, right? Because Airbnbs make more money, so people can't afford to live there, and there's not enough homes. And when we're talking about a housing crisis, and honestly, I was you know, if we could back out of it at this point, I would have gone to a hotel because I
Wow.
don't want to support making cities unlivable,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So what we decided we're going to do, we will make a contribution to
Mm.
something in Paris that
Mhm.
deals with people that are honestly basically homeless, and
Mm.
because that's what Airbnbs and short-term rentals have done, unfortunately. And I also get it. Like, I also get it. We get to live in somewhere, and you can go when you're
Mm.
with friends and you have breakfast and you do the things, but it's also making it harder for the people that live
Well,
there.
and that makes sense. Where we live is 90 minutes outside of Vancouver, British Columbia, and Vancouver is
Unlivable.
unlivable for the
It's
most
too
part.
expensive.
Yeah, the housing I have one daughter who lives there, and she was lucky. I have one daughter who lives there, one who lives in Richmond, one who lives in Surrey, and the one in Vancouver was lucky to find a place when she did. It's old and it's a bit run down, but she's in there, and the kind of place she has, you can't find that anymore
No.
for that price.
Oh my God, it's so
impossible.
expensive. And that's just it. And I think in being responsible, we have to look at we're going to do these things. We're going to do the things. Like, if there's things that we
Like, what are the
cannot do,
things?
like,
What do you mean?
we're going to travel, right? You
Okay.
get on a
Yeah.
plane, but now, like with many airlines, you can do a make this carbon neutral, and you pay an extra
Oh,
little
okay.
fee and things
Okay.
like that.
Yeah.
We always spend money at the local places and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
make sure we contribute. But and you know, we'll make a donation now for in Paris for this kind of thing. So you always try to, if we're putting stress on the environment or on the urban infrastructure, we try to make up for it in other ways, right? And I think more and more I'm hearing about it. Like, so we go on a lot of cruises because my husband Paul is very social, and I'm not always social, and
Well,
it gives us the best of both.
So he knows this
Yeah,
stuff. He knows this world.
but we have the best of all these worlds, right? When we go on a cruise, except cruises are according to some data really not good for the environment. So we have to figure out a way to offset that. But the other thing is, none of those studies talk about what happens because we're not here and we're not driving our car and we're not doing that. So there is an off, like I need to figure out, because we're all going to do things, and we need to figure out, if you're going to do things that take a little bit more, either out of a community or out of the environment, then we need to make up for it somehow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And I think that's a reasonable thing to do. But you still want to travel, because I mean, I think if more people traveled, we'd have less assholes in the world, honestly.
You know, it's about seeing the bigger world.
Yeah.
Right. So you make a very good point there, that the more you see of how someone else lives, we haven't traveled nearly as much. We had children, and we had children young. So that sort of takes care of travel for you for a while. But
now you are.
Yeah, now we are. And the bit that we have has shown me, wow, things that I never knew before, right?
Yeah.
Like, the world is a huge place. People live very differently from the way I grew up, and even the way I live now. And discovering that and seeing that people are different, and because they're different from you doesn't make them wrong.
No.
And you can see another part of the world and say, oh, wow, okay, I never knew this before. Hugely important.
Yeah.
That's just one of those mind shifts,
and
to discover that you don't know everything.
That's a big one, right?
It's huge.
And the flip side to that is discovering that you have more in common than you realize, right? Like, so Paul and I are incredibly fortunate that this will be our third African safari. We've gone to South Africa, and we've been to Kenya before. And one of the big reasons we're going now is because Giraffe Manor, which is a giraffe rescue, and it's one of Paul's favorite things, and a really dear friend of ours wanted to do that and go on safari. So we're going back to Kenya. But what you also realize is, you talked it like a tracker when you're out on, as much as you can, because they often have a different language, right? But I often bring little Vancouver sea salt and maple syrup, right? And and that doesn't replace the tips we give, because that money is really important. But when you give it to them, and and usually the trackers are male, not always, but typically they're male. But when you give them that and you talk about food, typically what happens is they go home and they take it home, and then they come back with a package of baked goods for you, right? Where it's like, this is our traditional thing, right? And but what you realize is there's this thing that happens when we live very, like, they live in mud huts, like honestly in some parts of Kenya and South Africa, when the trackers, they live in these small remote villages that don't have internet, don't even have TV, so they're all happy when they come to the lodge because they get to see TV and stuff. But what you realize is their whole thing, when you make it, and my efforts, my outreach tends to be around food because that brings people together. But then they're like, oh, I can do this for you too, right? And it's a really incredible thing when you understand that we have so much, our values have so much more in common, even though we might not speak the language. Or, you know, they grew up looking for freaking snakes in their boots every day, right? You know, or understanding what makes a lion a predator. Because so in Kenya, what we understand from the last time we were there, so the Maasai tribe is out, and they wear red. And they wear red because that's a sign that the lions know it's them. And they actually take entire herds of cattle through where I wouldn't get out of the vehicle, right? And they're safe because they don't kill the lions, and the lions know not to come at them.
Wow.
Right? And wow. So imagine, so if they can figure out a way to deal with the wild animals, how come we, you know, how come as a very, very left-leaning liberal can't figure out how to get along with conservatives? You know what I mean? Like, they can figure out how to get along with the stinking lions in the bush, man.
Well, you know, animals, they do have
values,
higher intelligence than a lot of humans.
But it is a thing where travel does, and then you sit and talk to somebody who, again, completely different life experience like we've had, and then it's like, huh, we're kind of alike.
Yeah. We are all across the globe more alike than we are different.
Yeah. Nope, that's true. And we have to find a way back from the crap right now, because there is stuff around the world, and I think it's because it's the diversification of a lot of countries, Europe and here, and people that look like us are completely freaked out about it. And that's freaking ridiculous, because you know what? Wasn't our stinking land?
Yeah.
You know, as we come into Thanksgiving, which is a holiday I have an issue with.
Yeah.
But what makes the world better is diversity, and the fact that the old white guy had a hold on everything, right, for so long is, and I get it, and I think we have to realize this is such a huge culture change and loss of power for some, that perhaps we have to be more compassionate about them. And I am willing to, until they say somebody's not equal. And then it's like, and I think I don't get to speak for anybody who looks different than me. But the thing is, you don't get to freaking do that. Like, no. I hope we're seen as allies, because nope.
Yeah. But also, you know what? As middle-aged white women, we have had privileges.
So much privilege.
Much of the world has not. But we've also seen a certain amount of
as women, we've seen a piece of the crap.
The world has been blocked to us in certain areas, especially when I think about the way I was brought up. Women were definitely disempowered in a lot of ways. So I recognize that does not equate to what people of color, Indigenous people, people with disabilities, any of that. That's not. But it's
a sliver of that pie.
But it is a sliver of that pie. And when I look at reclaiming who I am in terms of a human in the world, that should be available to everyone.
But see, I think that's exactly the point. As a human in the world, we should have the same opportunities and rights and equity and all of the things. And the challenge being at this point is that people see equality and equity as a pie. And I'm going to try to say this right because I might have a grammar nerd beside me. But it's like more rights for you doesn't mean less rights for me.
Yeah.
Is that right? Because it says fewer.
Fewer rights.
More because I somewhere I have a sweatshirt and it's got a piece of a pie and it's like more rights for you doesn't mean less. Is it less or fewer?
It probably fewer, but it doesn't really matter. The point is it's not a zero-sum game.
But that's just
it. Doesn't mean that if you get something, it's at my expense. It doesn't mean that. It's that we can all flourish. There is a world in which we can all flourish and we can all support each other in being our best selves and finding our best life.
And I swear to God, the skin color that we have doesn't make you any smarter or better or anything. Like the fact is that's how stinking things get judged.
Yeah.
Makes my head explode.
Yeah.
Right? And I think all people like us can do is make everywhere we are an inclusive, supportive place where I swear to God, I will punch people in the throat, right? Like because the other thing is
continue that because if it's a safe place and you're going to punch people, in the throat,
I'm not going to punch our people in the safe place. But the people that are ever like, you're a woman, you're not equal. You're a person of color, you're not equal. You're black, you're not equal. You're trans, you're not equal. I can't accept you. You can't be at my dinner table. Let's just make it clear right here. You're welcome at our dinner table.
This is Ruth and Roxy's happy hour. All are welcome, unless you're a jerk. If you're a shitbag, don't show up.
But that's exactly. If you're a fuckwad, go away. Right? But cheers. But and speaking of that, we're now at an hour and a minute. But we will say that's the whole point of this, is you are welcome, whoever you are, and you can come and be your own self here and your authentic self. And to anybody that doesn't like it.
Absolutely. We are about more happy hours and
less bullshit. Okay, now I can't find the freaking thing to say goodbye. Okay, you ready?
See you next week.
See you next 2 weeks.